So what's going on, YouTube? Anyway, my name's Hop. Hop75 is my gamer tag, but I go by Hop in game. Anyways, creating some content for you today. Have been requested to do so by several of my in-game friends and several of my clanmates and such. One of the reasons why I decided to do this is because you see many build content creators out there today. Anyways, just wanted to say thank you to anybody that views the stream and then the video afterwards. I hope that you enjoy the build and that you can tweak it and make it something that you can perform well with when you're running your legendaries or running any other content that you choose to do so with this build. Anyways, I also want to make sure to give a shout out to the clan, Death Division, FKM, freaking killing machines. Yeah, they've been great. Been my home for quite some time, and they have been also one of the main reasons why I've decided to go ahead and start doing these videos. So first of all, the first build video that I'm going to do today is going to be an Eclipse protocol build. This build is a crowd control beast. You'll see here in a moment as I go over some of the certain portions of the build that are very particular, and some pieces of it have to be met. It is not something that has to be god rolled ultimately, but once you do get everything maxed out, it performs really well, especially against legendary chungas and legendary bosses, named elites, things in that manner. World chungas, legendary chungas are held to the PvP duration based on my experience, and everything else is then given the normal duration of the crowd control with the foam. I use foam and I also use EMP for this build, and I guess with that I'll go ahead and get into the reason why I use the build. I use the build so that you can basically mitigate a ton of outgoing damage that is affecting your teammates, so that you can stop a chunga in his tracks and cause him to have to rid himself of foam, so that you can eliminate his hive from becoming a nuisance to you at 60 meters, which seems to be the distance which they take effect, and many other such things like hounds and other things that are a nuisance during legendaries, drone operators, tanks, many things that are electronic. The EMP sticky works good on. Foam and EMP sticky work good on the chungas and many other mobs. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and start going into the build breakdown. So first off, we'll talk about the specialization. The specialization is going to be Demolitionist. So the reason why I've chosen Demolitionist is because of the 5% damage targets out of cover, but also because of the additional explosive damage, because in this build I choose to run the Vial Mask. So let me go ahead and go to the Specializations table to show you what I'm talking about here. So basically, I've chosen to run Demolitionist because of multiple reasons. One, because while I'm performing CC, I tend to pull a lot of threat. And so what's kind of nice is I can ignore explosions. Let's see, where is this at? That's going to be down here, I believe. Group members gain 5% damage targets out of cover. Okay, so that's one of the main ones. Another one is the ignore explosions every 60 seconds. While you're doing crowd control, or CC as we like to call it, crowd control is just a long word for it. CC is what I've known it as for a long time. So when you're doing CC, you tend to pull a lot of threat, because in this particular build, things tend to spread, and they spread very quickly, and they spread to every single target within 15 meters and sometimes in the upwards of 21 meters because of the different pieces that we have applied here. So that's one of the things that we like. Now, the other thing is, of course, the grenade launcher, which is a beast when it comes to weapons. Not very useful against very many enemies in this particular build because you're not putting out a lot of damage other than your explosives damage. Now, one of the other things that I chose this build for is that it's 10% increased explosives damage. So this affects your grenades and your skills and your effects. So your explosions on any of your crowd control items, such as your fire starter gas cloud, is an explosion. Your hive is an explosion. The initial contact of the hive is an explosion. So those explosive abilities are boosted. So you get a 10% increase there. Now, the reason why I've chosen to go with an increase in the explosives damage as well is because the overall benefit that this specialization provides to the crowd control build. So the crowd control build also has some fire resistance, which you tend to get a lot of burns when you are in legendaries and when you're out in the open world running heroics and such. So basically good burn resistance in this build. It's kind of boosted, so to speak. It's also boosted with the gear set that we're running. But enough about the specialization. Let's move into more details about the build itself. So Demolitionist, okay? We chose Demolitionist. And now we're going to go into the weapons. So the first weapon that I tend to use, and I use most often, is going to be the Everlasting Gaze. This is the named Police MK17. A very excellent weapon. Has a good base accuracy and great base stability. The weapon returns to target very quickly. The rate of fire is only 275, but it does hit really hard. If you have somebody in the group that's giving you a little bit more of a bump with a coyote mask, your headshots tend to hit really hard as well. The biggest thing is Everlasting Gaze provides you with perfect perpetuation. What this does is this gives you headshots granting 50% status effect damage increase and duration increase to the next status effect you apply. So now the perfect portion of this perfect perpetuation is a cooldown of 16 seconds. If you actually went with the standard perpetuation because you don't like this particular weapon, you're only going to lose 4 seconds. So you would add a 4-second cooldown, so it'd be 20 seconds. So if you went with a normal perpetuation weapon, it would be a 20-second cooldown on that weapon. So the next weapon that I use is going to be the Scorpio. There's multiple reasons why I choose to use this weapon. I use this weapon not only because it applies different types of status effects like disorient and shock, but it also does the 7th stat here, which is once you debuff a target, say a Chunga, which is taking tons of damage and basically is a bullet sponge, once you debuff him with 7 shots, he's going to take an additional 20% damage from all sources. That means everything that's hitting him, be it fire, be it your status effect from your vial mask, be it somebody shooting him, be it somebody's turret, somebody's drone, a seeker mine, whatever it is that hits him, 20% damage from all sources, okay? The stacks don't increase anymore, but he takes those for 10 seconds. So that's huge. That 20% increase is a monster. On top of that, you're giving 5% bonus damage targets out of cover, and that makes that a total bonus damage to your group of 25%. So it's huge. Anything that increases your group's damage when you're running legendaries with a 4-man team usually is a benefit, especially when you're doing CC because you're not really doing a lot of damage. So again, that's why I've chosen to use this weapon. I know it is a favorite weapon among a lot of players out there, and many people want to see it nerfed and other sorts of things like that. But I definitely think that this weapon is the prime weapon that you can use in this. If you don't have this weapon, then you can go with any other shotgun that you have. I definitely think a shotgun is a great secondary. Something that does some type of a status effect is also probably a good idea. All right, so let's get into the other portions of the build. So first thing, we'll go with the mask. I choose to use the Vile mask because I want to do a little bit of chip damage while I'm performing this crowd control. I also want that additional hazard protection that's offered there. Yes, it's only 10%, but that's okay. It helps me because now I've got a total of 30% burn resistance if you don't count your watch being at 1,000. So without my watch being at 1,000, I'm gaining an additional 30% burn resistance because of the specialization and this mask. So basically what this mask does is it applies toxic delivery. So status effects, this means any type of a status effect, also applies a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds. The total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade damage and increased by your status effect attributes. So currently, if you were to back out of this mask and look at my concussive grenade, not this grenade, not the fragmentation grenade, not the cluster grenade, but the original grenade that you get, the concussion grenade, okay? So the concussion grenade does 1.758 million damage. So that damage cut in half and then status effects added to that is what my Vile mask will do. Okay, now I'm sure you're like, well, why isn't my grenade doing this much damage? So you're not really sure why that's happening, and so what you'll notice is that you will also gain increases from other portions of the gear set that I'm going to show you here in a moment. So let's go ahead and go into those details as well. So without going into the set pieces, also I guess I should probably talk about this. This is a TDI card custom. I choose to run that just in case I'm running something like a Reviver Hive or another item of the sort. And I choose to run it with Vindictive because I am applying status effects, and if I kill somebody with this weapon, it makes it to where I grant myself and all allies 15% critical hit chance and 15% critical hit damage for 20 seconds. So with that into consideration, you're already going to be applying some status effects, and you can then whip out your pistol. I would have to say that it's pretty rare that I actually pull out my pistol and do this unless we're seriously lacking in damage and other things like that. So anyways, going into the further points of the build. Without going into the gear set, we'll get into the other complicated part of the build, which is this portion here. So I choose to use China Light Industries. And the reason why I go with China Light Industries is because of the one set bonus. The one set bonus that's provided here is 15% explosives damage. That increases any explosives damage that I do, including increasing the amount that my concussive grenade would do. So basically that grants my Vile mask an additional debuff over time. Okay, so the 10-second debuff that the Vile mask applies is increased. The amount of damage that it does is increased. You'll notice that I have status effects and skill damage on this item, and then I've added skill haste as my mod. Okay, so all of my gear is based on status effects. So we'll go into that. So I run the Eclipse Protocol chess piece. This is a must anytime you're running Eclipse Protocol, just because you want to make sure that you have that 15-meter spread. So the reason why I run the chess piece is because of the proliferation that it adds to the indirect transmission. Now these are all terms that you're probably not understanding. So as you can see here, the Eclipse Protocol set gives me 30% hazard protection. So now you've noticed that with 30% hazard protection there, I'm actually getting a full 40% hazard protection as well as a full 60% fire protection because I have that hazard protection and that fire protection. Okay, so, or the burn resistance. So basically, I only need another 40 if I want to be able to avoid any incoming damage from fire. Anyways, going further into the description of indirect transmission. Indirect transmission basically makes my status effects now spread on kill to all enemies within 10 meters and refresh refresh 50% of the duration. So that's the reason why I used the Eclipse protocol on this crowd control build, because of the spread. I made sure to set this up so that it is still skill tier and it is status effects and haste, or with a haste mod, excuse me. Proliferation, which comes from this particular chess piece, increases my indirect transmission range from 10 meters to 15 meters, and the percentage from 50% to 75% on the refresh. So that's huge. When my CC or crowd control spreads, it makes it to where it affects targets within 15 meters, and then also will refresh the duration by 75%. Now, something I didn't touch on was a portion of my backpack, which I'll go back into now. So the backpack talent. You'll notice on the backpack that I have a talent called Creeping Death. When you apply a status effect, it is also applied to all enemies within 8 meters of your target. So this 8 meters is great for when choppers come down and multiple enemies are coming out of choppers and things like that. Those targets that are up in the chopper normally are never more than 8 meters up off the ground. You'll notice that they're very close. You can also shoot the top of the chopper with your foam, do things like that. Now, the cooldown on that is 15 seconds. Something else I wanted to point out, though, was that this 8-meter jump can increase the amount of jump you get from your indirect transmission. So when your indirect transmission applies a status effect, it applies it to all targets at the same time, which means all enemies that were applied now will jump another 8 meters. So you're gaining that additional 8 meters because you applied that status effect to all those targets at the same exact moment. Now, I'm not sure if they meant it to work that way, but that's how it works, and I've seen it work multiple times that way. So definitely would have to say that Creeping Death is a must on this build. If you don't run Creeping Death here, the other talent that you can run would be Opportunistic. Because you're running a shotgun so much in this build, you would then cause enemies to take 10% damage from all sources. Okay, so enemies would take 10% damage from all sources for 5 seconds. That's huge. You know what I mean? It's a gigantic damage boost, and if you're using the Scorpio, you're actually causing that increase 30%. So that's another option you have here. Again, you'll see that that's a China Light bag that I run with that. It's just one of my other options that I run with this build. All right, so I've given you the chest piece. Now we go into the gloves. The gloves are a Eclipse Protocol set of gloves, and of course they are status effects maxed out and skill tier. The holster is a skill tier and max status effects. Again, Eclipse Protocol. And again, we go with the knees, and they are going to be a skill tier and again status effects. Now let's go demo this particular version and show you how much damage the foam does, as well as show you how long it holds. Okay, so we'll go in here and we're going to set this on, we'll go ahead and go down here and we'll show you on heroic, just to kind of show you what's up. We'll go over here to this side and we'll set this on hard. Okay. Now I'm going to apply foam to the purple target. Apparently I'm not going to apply foam to the purple target. So anyways, as you can see there, he's taking 84k ticks with this weapon in hand. Now, one of the things that I've also noticed about those vial drips is that the vial drips will actually increase depending on the weapon that you're holding at that moment. So we'll go ahead and show you with that one. We've got 76k, okay. You got 84k with that one. Sorry, gotta go. Weapon here. Alright, and we go to the Everlasting Gaze, and then we go to the Scorpio Shotgun. So, Scorpio Shotgun will actually do more damage to armor, and that is seen here. So you can see that it does 12% damage to armor, okay? And the Everlasting Gaze I have set up for 10% damage target out of cover, or OOC as they call it. So the DTA is 12% and the OOC is 10. The 10% OOC does damage to all targets that are foamed. Because they're foamed, they're out of cover. They are no longer in cover once they're foamed. Okay, so once they're foamed, they're out of cover, and they're actually taking damage. You do have to have that weapon in hand, though, as you see. If I change from that to, if I change from that to my foam gun, you can see that I actually do less damage when I'm holding the foam gun. So holding the foam gun, 76k. Holding this, and holding this. Okay, you can see 86k to armor and 76k. So the more regular number is going to be the Everlasting Gaze, again because it's got the OOC instead of just the DTA. Alright, again, you saw the vial ticks there with that, so let's go ahead and show you now. Get some headshots on this guy. And I'll do some more headshots on this guy. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and show you what this does now that I've got what we call Perpetuation procced with Everlasting Gaze. Okay, so with Everlasting Gaze and Perpetuation procced, you can see that we are now doing 84,000. And I do apologize, I didn't realize one of my clan members had jumped in here. So let's see here, what build is he running? He's running Gunner, so he's not granting me any benefit as far as my crowd control goes. If he was running Demo, he would actually be increasing the amount of damage that my Vile Mass did. So again, we do have Perpetuation procced, and we will be trying to show you how much damage or what the increase is as far as damage goes. Now the range isn't really a great place to show this, but you can see those numbers dripping down my screen. Anyways, going back into it, we can change this a little bit. So we can change this to where we don't have the creeping death, and we actually use this other variation of this build, me and my clanmates do quite often. So here's the other variation. Okay, this one has Eclipse knees, which are again explosives damage bonus, skill tier, status effects, and skill haste. Okay, I've gone with the Eclipse backpack in this build because your status effects now spread on kill to all enemies within 10 meters and refresh 50% of the duration indirect transmission. But I also get Symptom Aggravator, which amplifies all damage you deal to status affected targets by 30%. So now those 84,000 ticks that you saw with Everlasting Gaze will now change. That's going to jump to almost 100k. And the way that I'll demo that for you is I'm going to run Jammer Pulse. Everyone knows that Jammer Pulses don't normally do damage to enemies. So we'll go ahead and do this. And yes, it will damage tech. But you can see that these ticks are 110k, right? Those ticks are 110k. Okay. So just to kind of give you an idea, go ahead and do this. Get a headshot. You can see I've got the infinity symbol or perpetuation procced, which is 50% increased status effects, damage, and duration. So now we're going to apply this again, And now you can see I'm doing 141,000 per tick. That basically tells you that every second I'm doing that damage. So you're doing 1.4 million damage over 10 seconds to every single one of those targets. When it was at 110, of course, 1.1 million damage. And when it was at 84, you're doing 840,000 damage to those targets over 10 seconds. So now, another thing that you can also look at is with fire. So for example, I have my fire sticky here, and I can basically shoot that, and I can detonate it, and now that'll spread, okay? And now I'm getting 318 plus the 110 per target, okay? So, and you can see that this just continues to spread and continues to spread and continues to spread. Now, something that I wanted to show you was basically once everything falls back off, we're going to get a headshot here, okay? And now we have that. And now we'll throw another burnout, okay? Now we're doing 409 plus 110, okay? That's during the burn duration, and then I also do the vial debuff as well. So basically what you're getting there is a burn damage of approximately, what is it, like 2 million or something like that? Almost 5 million burn damage, but burns don't usually last for 10 seconds. Let me see how long my burn lasts in this, okay? I'm not sure if it gives you, so duration says 12 seconds, but that's not how long the burn lasts. Basically, it's going to last for about 10 seconds. So you're doing about 5 million damage with your burn, and you're doing another million damage with your vial mask. So if you add that together, you're doing about 6 million damage over 10 seconds, just with your crowd control. You're not even firing your weapon. So we will fire our weapon, get another perpetuation. Okay, 409 and 141, right? You can just see those numbers raining down the screen. And I'm not even looking at what the damage of the actual sticky is. Let's see what that is. I didn't see it there. I'm not sure it's going to show it. Yeah, it's not showing me the explosive damage, but as you can see when you look at the build and you look at the fire sticky here, you can see that it's going to do 1 million damage when it explodes. That's the explosive damage that it does there. It doesn't show you what kind of burn damage it does, which is it's okay. I can see it when I watch my damage numbers. So long story short, that's my Eclipse protocol build. It's one of the variations that we use when we are running a higher damage, or I often use this when I'm shepherding in lower levels, hard content and below. Basically nukes everything that I come in contact with, that type of stuff. But ultimately, the variation that I showed you here is one of the better variations for crowd control during any of the runs. The EMP sticky, excellent, works good on any of the technology that you run into, any of the medics and other technicians. Skill tier 6, it's a beast. And then again, the riot foam, of course, works great. You can see that I have my ensnare duration up all the way. You can also see that my basic ensnare duration is going to be 17.9 with an ammo cooldown of 17.3, which means basically that unless it's a chunga, I'm going to be holding them in place longer than it takes for my ammo to cool down. Now, when it comes to a chunga, you can see that the PvP and snare duration is 6 seconds. That's basically all I'm going to get. That's all I'm going to get off of a chunga. 6 seconds. But 6 seconds on a chunga is a long time, and it's kind of nice when you can hold them there. You do have to watch out for diminishing returns when you're applying those CC effects on those chungas as well, just to give you a heads up. You can't just keep spraying foam on them. You have to wait. You spray foam on them, you wait for them to break free, you spray foam on them again. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to see gameplay, you can check me out on YouTube every once in a while. I'm gameplaying, and this is one of the builds that I use. You can also watch fellow clan member and fellow YouTube content creator, Slackadelic. He's one of our clan mates, and he tends to stream quite often. So